My buddy here that I'm about to have on, he buys tickets. His family goes to the games. And we buy these tickets, and he and I never get to use them because we got to work on game day. That's John Holcomb from the Cowboy Radio Network and the statewide sports blitz. Ooh, I got to come clean. I got to come clean that I criticized the blitz this week. Yeah, because I'm always honest with my man John. And John, good morning.
Good morning, Robert.
Let's start with the blitz criticism, okay? Because I
Yeah,
got to
go
get
for
this
it.
out of the way. I mean, I said this, and it really wasn't aimed at you. I think it was aimed more at Dean. And I do say I love Dean because, unlike a lot of people in the media that are out there that are maybe coming from a certain side of the biggest rivalry, collegiate rivalry in the state, Dean's honest. He's an OU guy, played quarterback at OU, never denies it, never denies he's an OU lover, and I respect him immensely for that because I'm the same way as a Cowboy guy. So it's cool. Um, but I did criticize the blitz on Sunday fairly heartily. In fact, quite enthusiastically. How could you move Cowboy wrestling with Iowa? I mean, we saw it barely before play the percentages. It should have been the lead. I'm
Oh yeah,
sorry.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. That kind of atmosphere, I wish I could have been there. But yeah, that's why if we're going to do it the way we're going to do it, then I at least made my opening comments all about it. And yeah, no, you're right. I'll say we whiffed a little bit on that one.
Yeah, and I put most of the blame on Dean because I know where your heart was. Your opening comments showed that. So okay. Anyway, yeah, and see that's the good thing. I'll pass comments, between Dean and I will go through John, and John will probably see Dean on Sunday, and he'll say, "By the way, I was on Robert's radio show this week. He was really disappointed in that wrestling being placed so low. We need to think about that next time, Dean." Okay. You really, after a long trip back from Lubbock, Texas, flying into Oklahoma City, busing to Stillwater, getting a room, now driving back to Tulsa, and you're like, I said yes last night to Robert for this? You got to be kidding me. Okay, let's get to the real reason I wanted to have you on. Um, Dave's calls, by the way, were brilliant. The call on Lindy's three pointer to send it to overtime, it's priceless. It's classic Dave Hunziker. Um, Talk about that game last night because, and your interview with Coach Boynton in the locker room also was spot on, was outstanding. Um, this team is not great. This team doesn't have a good record and all that other stuff, but this team should be respected. And last night was another example why they deserve our respect.
Well, I'll echo what you said about Dave, and I'll give Dave props for this too, because as it was coming down the stretch, and we got to the stage right about the time they inbounded the ball, and from our vantage point, it did look like it went off of Lindy's hands. But the original call was OSU ball with 7 seconds left, and after
Right.
that long delay to look at the monitor, they didn't have a good angle to see what we saw because it came right at us. And so the Cowboys kept it. But Dave said during that stretch, he said, I got a feeling that something near miraculous is going to happen. Either somebody's going to make it 3 and force overtime or somebody's going to win the game here. And, boy, Lindy Waters was just unbelievable down the stretch. Yeah, I was really proud of this team for this reason. Yeah, it's been a long season. Yeah, your numbers are down. You're playing against some really good teams in the league down the stretch, too. And after what happened Saturday, you could be excused for wondering if they just reached the end of it and that there was nothing left in the tank emotionally, mentally, or physically. But the way the juniors, the leaders on this team, fought back and really gave themselves just about every chance down the stretch of pulling off maybe what would have been the biggest upset in conference play in a power conference all season long. It was just great to behold. you could tell, Robert, there were signs leading up to it, and Mike Boynton alluded to it in the post-game interview that after he challenged them that Thomas DeZagua really led in practice the previous 2 days. And then during shoot-around yesterday, Dave and I both noticed that Cam McGriff had a real edge about him. And he and DeZagua were kind of barking at each other at one point about defensive assignments when they went after it. Normally shoot-arounds are a little bit, less physical. You want to get shots up. You want to run through your stuff. You want to do a few things full speed, but you normally don't really go a lot 5-on-5 necessarily, especially when you're in the situation the Cowboys are. But they did. Thomas and Cam had their back and forth, and it wasn't disrespectful at all. It was just two guys who had an edge and wanted to play well. And then Thomas led the way in the early stages of the game, just knocking down three after three. And don't forget, Texas Tech was the leading team in the Big 12 in terms of three-point percentage defense. And
yes,
number
four in the country.
Yeah,
John,
number
four in the nation.
Look, they're a really good team. Tech is a really good team. Now the Cowboys helped expose what could be Tech's Achilles heel if it gets to an NCAA tournament situation where they don't have multiple guys who can put it on the floor and get to the rim on good defensive teams. Culver's that, Matt Mooney in overtime did that, but the points they were getting at the rim in the first half just weren't there in the second half because the Cowboys did a better job defensively. And then they missed free throws, too, outside of Moretti. Did you see that stat that Davide Moretti made 32 of 33 free throws in February? That's crazy, and they just couldn't foul anybody else but him. But, that one last night was it was a lot of fun. It's probably the most fun and the most proud I've ever been of a team that I broadcast a game.
Yeah, it was good. Here's another thing. The seamstress, the equipment staff, somebody needs to get the thread and out, and we need to see Mitchell on the back of 31. If that's some sort of indoctrination or you're marked kind of like the scarlet letter in reverse, your name's not on the back of the jersey. If you're one of the tryout walk-ons, that's fine. But Mitchell needs the name on the back of his jersey now. He deserves it.
Oh, yeah, there's no question about it. The play that he hit the three on I couldn't think of what to say. It was laugh because the play where he hit the three to put OSU up by one was just so in the flow, in rhythm of a half-court set, and he had no hesitation about him and just stepped up and knocked it down. And then to play all of the overtime, and even if he wasn't the primary ball handler, whenever he had the ball, no turnovers, scores 5 points, makes 2 of 3 when he gets fouled shooting at 3. I will say this: that before the TCU game here in Stillwater, Coach Boynton said, he expected that he would probably play D in that game. It might even get him in the first half to spell Isaac likely some minutes, just to try to keep the minute workload from getting too high. And I watched D during warm-ups, and honestly, I hadn't watched him before, so this may be a little bit unfair. He looked a little bit wide-eyed to me during warm-ups, and so I had a little bit of a concern that maybe he knew this might be his first real chance, and maybe he was thinking about it too much. Well, then I watched it. He didn't get in that game. The Cowboys win it. Then I watched him in Manhattan, and I watched him last night going through warm-ups. He looked like a different, more calm, just like the way he played. I'm not going to sit here and tell you they've got a tremendous find for the future on their hands, but he deserves a ton of credit, and at the very least, yes, deserves his name on the back of the jersey.
Yeah, I think he's a keeper, and he had in regulation, he was down there, and the ball went off his shin, and Oklahoma State ended up getting it. Once he becomes, you can tell he's an adequate. I would put him as an adequate defender right now. He can defend. Mm-hmm. Probably not going to make any spectacular defensive plays, but he can keep himself between his target or the guy he's defending in the basket, and he can defend shots and all that. But he's athletic enough that once he's comfortable, he'll start making. I can see him as a guy that can make steals, pick passes off. He's athletic. He's got some quickness to him. He's just thinking about things still rather than reacting. And when he gets to the reaction mode, really comfortable, he can be a scholarship, definitely a scholarship caliber player. In fact, I'm kind of wondering what he was doing playing over at the Colvin Center. All right.
Dominating.
No, yeah, dominating, exactly. Yeah, having fun,
Yeah.
All right. Another question. Uh, coming out of last night with this team, you made a point out of it because I saw your report the night before. By the way, that was the other thing. Dean led with your report the night before from Lubbock, and I'm like, okay, they lead with a preview of Oklahoma State Tech on the 10 o'clock sports on Channel 9 the night before the game, and then push the wrestling to the end of the sports blitz. It was just another. I'm like, come on, Dean, let me help you with formatting, brother. Anyway, all right, we saw your report. No players or no coaches on the team playing. We know where they were. They were, I think two or three of them were in Dallas at the Jesuit Colleen Ellison playoff game, watching Julius Marble, and then somebody else I think had splintered off, and I forget which kid they went and watched. Anyway, how weird was that? I mean, because Tom Dorado here did this a long time. He never remembered a plane or a road trip where there wasn't at least one coach on the trip heading to the destination. How weird was it?
Well, it had a different feel to it, no question. Um, Lance Traster, the director of operations, was, I guess you could say, uh, if the president's incapacitated, vice president becomes next in command. I guess Lance might have filled that bill. But I mean, people also need to understand that, and now, I mean, on the back end of it, you almost beat the number 11 team in the country on the road, and all of this. You might say, if you're superstitious, why not travel separately, team and coaches from here on out, like at Waco next week? I don't think that will happen. But it was different. It's the first time I can remember anything like that. But they had held a practice and had a pretty vigorous workout mid-afternoon right before going over to the airport to catch the flight, or in this case, flights. But you know what? Here's one reason. The obvious reason is the recruiting aspect of it. But the second thing is if you're Mike Boynton, if you don't trust the player leadership that you have, you probably don't do that. You probably at least have one of your staff members go with the team. But I think, and he didn't say this to me, it's just my gut feeling, the level of maturity and leadership you have with McGriff, DeZagua, and Lindy Waters, and how the rest of the guys on the roster right now respond to them, take their cues from them, I think that makes it a little bit easier. It does highlight the need for the big player inside that can rebound and help you physically for next season, and that's why you go look at a Julius Marble. And all I could get out of that was that it went very well. There were no specifics, but I was just told it went very well. So, but I do think it goes back to that.
Oh yeah, it went great for Marble. He had 22 points, 15 rebounds, and Jesuit advanced. So, yeah, it went good for him. I hope he noticed the orange in the stands and considered that a good luck charm. And I don't know when Jesuit plays next, but I'd have some orange in the stands for that one too. Here's the crazy thing: Michigan State's offered him. Apparently, Tom Izzo came down, watched him, and made the decision to offer him on the spot. John, Dallas Jesuit's about less than a mile from, well, it's much less. It's a half a mile from my house that I grew up in
Wow.
Dallas. My high school's
Wow.
my high school's probably a quarter of a mile from Jesuit, and as long as I grew up, um, all their great athletes went to Notre Dame. I mean, it's the biggest Catholic school in the state of Texas, high school, prep school, and Notre Dame pretty much had a lock. I'm wondering where's Notre Dame on offering this kid because maybe that's changed over the years, but No, this guy's a real deal basketball player. You add him to the Boone brothers and Avery Anderson and Boynton's cousin from Georgia. Whoo, that's a good crew. That makes that class even better. All right, last thing before we let you go. Because of Sean and Scott, there's the tie between Oklahoma State and Texas Tech staffs. I'm interested if you heard any feedback from what was said after the game last night from Tech. And I know you guys were getting packed up and getting out of there in a hurry, but you guys know Jeff, their play-by-play guy, and again, Sean is on the other side. I'm wondering if Chris Beard explained this to his team and to his fan base as, we're sorry, we let you down, we didn't play that well, or if the due respect I thought that was deserved Oklahoma State, and I would expect this because I think Chris Beard is a classy dude. That came out of the Tech camp and was spread over to Oklahoma State. Hey, we respect the heck out of you guys. That was a heck of an effort. What'd you hear?
Yeah, I watched the post-game handshake between Boynton and Beard, and Chris Beard. You can't really read lips, oh, but he spent an extra little amount of time, kind of gave Mike a hug, and it was obvious to me that the respect that was conveyed there. And Sean Sutton and Glenn Cyprian, who was also on the Final Four staff in '04 here in Stillwater. Sean and Sip were standing right in front of our broadcast position as after they went through the handshake line, and they both turned around and shook Dave's hand and my hand. And the first thing I noticed was this extreme look of relief on their faces. Because, look, they had a lot to play for. If they lose that one, then they lose a chance to share the lead in the conference. But they both we were in a segment, so I couldn't take the headset off. But what they said was, that's a heck of an effort from you guys, and that's a winning effort from you guys. So they know. I mean, I think they knew. They've been around the game long enough. I think they knew that whatever pride the Cowboys had remaining in this season was going to come out one way or another. They might have fought, and this is what we said before the game. They've asked me, what does OSU have to do to have a chance to win this game? And I said, well, they got to fight for 40 minutes. As it turns out, they had to fight for 45, did a pretty good job of it, and they have to make threes. And they did both of those things. And I think that nothing but respect coming out of the Texas Tech camp for sure, because Chris Beard would say going into it, he loves Isaac Likely. Tech recruited Isaac Likely pretty hard, but waited a little bit longer or had someone else they brought in, and so Isaac didn't want to wait anymore, and he came to OSU. That was one of the ways you could read it. And he also respects the heck out of Cam McGriff. That is Chris Beard. So he knew that those two guys would bring the toughness. And then, you just look at the stats, and, when OSU had success, they knocked down a lot of threes. And, well, that mix almost got them last night.
Yeah, I noticed watching television, Chris Beard spent extra time with Lindy Waters at the end of the handshake line. He it wasn't just a handshake. He grabbed him and spoke to him a little bit. Here's another thing I'm hoping. Normally a team in the position Oklahoma State's in the standings is not going to get a lot of postseason honors. And quite frankly, postseason honors are, hey, it's, but I would hope that especially Lindy and Thomas get recognized. And I'm not talking honorable mention. I think at least second team, and I may be asking for too much there. And then they'll do an all-freshman team. And I don't think there's any doubt Isaac Likely, his overall numbers may not match up with everybody, but and that's the other thing. How bad is that ankle? Because at times it looked like he was really dragging it last night.
Yeah, and you just hope that this rest and some probably electrostim, some ice, and all that kind of thing, that he'll be able to go. It's not like they're going to do a whole lot of physical stuff today or tomorrow anyway to get ready for Kansas, especially when you had, the three juniors especially just play 40 wouldn't be, but yeah,
Yeah.
as close to 100% as possible against Kansas because he presents some matchup problems for the Jayhawks if Dotson is guarding him. Or if Charlie Moore comes in off the bench and guards him. Now, Kansas will have Marcus Garrett back. He did not play in the first game, and so he gives him some length, and he's an athletic defender type who can score, more of a kind of a hustle play score kind of guy. He can make shots, but they don't run primary stuff for him. But likely gave them problems because of his ability to get all the way to the rim. And Kansas, outside of Mitch Lightfoot, doesn't really have a real rim protector. Dedrick Lawson's not that, and they're missing Azubuike. So you have opportunities, and I think it's also here's kind of a hidden blessing potentially. Yorane fouled out about halfway through the second half. Yor gave Kansas some issues in Lawrence once he got settled down. Yor also got a little fire in his belly. Might remember Mitch Lightfoot getting him off balance and blocking a shot and then staring him down, something apparently Lightfoot's been really good at in Allen Fieldhouse. Little finger wag the other night against Kansas State and a stare down, showing a little attitude. Frankly, Kansas needed that. But he hasn't done it on the road yet. And if I were Yorane, I would want to take it right at him and make him prove he can do it somewhere other than at home.
Yeah. Good stuff. And did you burn up all your eligibility at OBU?
Well, I mean, it's NAIA, and you know those rules. I could probably be 57 in about 3 or 4 years and still have a couple of years somewhere, but nobody's want me to use them.
What?
Here's my rule of thumb, Robert.
Your name won't be on the back of the – Go ahead.
No. Here's my rule of thumb. I get asked this. I've been asked this 2 or 3 times over the course of this whole open tryout and walk-ons being on the roster. They say, can you still shoot it? And I say, yeah, I can still shoot it. The problem is getting open.
I was going to say, your name won't be on the back of the jersey, but if we get any more guys foul out or hurt, they're going to grab you from over there and throw you out there. So it'll be,
That's take my tie off. Yeah.
Well, yeah, and you know what? You can't use 7, so we'll just make it. We'll just make it 54 or 55 with no name on the back.
Fair enough.
All right, or we could just shoot ahead and put a 60 on it. What the heck? All right. With that, that's my jersey number. I'm close to that now. I'm pushing that one now. All right. Hey John, we appreciate it.
All right, man.
we appreciate it, and have a good trip back to Tulsa, and hopefully I don't think it's supposed to get bad again till Sunday. The road should be clear for your trip over for the KU game.
Yeah, for those wondering, the road getting to the turnpike out of Stillwater still has a few spots here and there, but at least you can see where it looks like it's dry.
You know what? It was good for me this morning. I did the show from home yesterday. But today there weren't even any cars off the road or anything. It was pretty good today. Now, again, what was funny was the other night when it was dropping, I think at one point they said the temperature in Oklahoma City was like 28, and it was 57 in Tulsa.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, it was 73 in Lubbock when we landed there on Tuesday.
Wow. I bet it wasn't when you took off last night.
No, it was getting closer to 45, pretty much.
Wow. Well, then, that's amazing. Their weather's that much better than ours. Hey, John, we appreciate it.
Robert, we'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, John Holcomb from the Statewide Sports Blitz.